All right, welcome. So we're this group, of course, we're AI and technology, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We have talked all morning about the importance of data, and the data itself is very important. But what we're really finding, I think, in the space is that how that data is stored and leveraged and used is just as important. Back in the day, everybody said there's a data lake that became a data ocean, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So Asif Syed is with me here, data architect, data governance for Fidelity Investments, and we're going to be talking, how to transform operations with virtual database technology. So powering that contact center transformation with smart data strategy and AI integration. So help me welcome Asif to the stage. Is he on?
All good?
There we go. All right.
Yep.
All right. So, Asif, why don't you go ahead and, obviously I gave you a quick introduction, but tell us a little more about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Asif, and I have started my first job in a call center, way back 20 years. And I know, how the call centers work. The customer calls in, and they complain about their products and services. So that's how I started my job, and then gradually I moved into the IT sector, wherein I started into BI, and probably from there I worked more on the analytics, data science, and governance. So I've been working for Fidelity for last 10 years, and I've been working on the large data, which is more of financial, as well as we have contact center data as well. So, security is the key aspect here, which is very important because it's very sensitive pertaining to the PII, as well as, also maintaining the regulatory standards that's been very much required. So, yeah, that's a summary of I've been working on.
All right. So as we think about this, we're using a term that maybe not everybody's familiar with, virtual database technology. In plain terms, what does that solve in today's day and age?
Everyone is aware about the physical database, which is, I would say, standard an Oracle DB, or virtual is trendy. Right now, it's more of if you have you can reference a flash memory, probably you would say. So similarly, we can create a virtual database on top of a physical database, which is quickly provisioned and easy to give access protocols. If it's not needed, it could be deleted. So it could be for call center, it could be for retention, marketing. So it doesn't create any overloads, and do not use the resources of the physical database. That's very key. And it's when the physical database resources are not used, so it's kind of protected from outside, users and stuff. So that would be helpful at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when do you see, in contact centers, you talked about coming out of that and now supporting them from the from this perspective. Where do you see some of the data constraints slowing transformation of that data, and that this can help?
Yeah. So the main the constraints when are because of approvals. Data constraints in terms of provisioning the platforms, seeking approvals from the business. So that slows down the entire process within. And if you have an automation in place, if you have a tightly integrated AI, which take care of the approval, which would be leading a request to the stakeholders, and it would approve it. That would benefit in terms of getting the automation right away, and also the environment slow. So the request would be directly flowing in within from the application, go to the stakeholders, and it would be get approved.
Okay, so it basically makes it usable faster,
Right.
and then obviously keeps it from slowing down. Which, in today's day, in today's use of it with AI, you have to, right? You have to be able to move fast with that data. But you also, have a lot. I think one of the earlier folks was talking about the PII and masking the right amount of data from a security perspective. And when you think about that, obviously, it was very important. I think Laura said that you can't. Risk is going to be present. You just have to manage risk the right way. It doesn't mean you avoid risk completely. So how do you look at that, and how do you look at the opportunity to make something, I know it's not an IT term, safe enough for use, especially in real time?
I mean, it's rightly been said, right? We cannot avoid risk. We can mitigate risk. So, I mean, we can make it safer, but still there would be a risk anyhow. So in order to, minimize the risk, there are standards, protocols, controls applied on the data. So whenever there is a requirement, so for example, if a product needs to be released for, a wider market, and it needs to be tested, and it need to be tested with multiple scenarios, and the data needs to be made available on the lower environments or a development side. So at that point of time, few controls are applied on the data in terms of masking the data, so which is a real kind of data, but not real data, I would say, wherein the developers or any people or product people working on those kind of data can work on it, but it's not a real data. But they can justify a product, situations could be tested, scenarios could be tested, and then it could be released in the market for wider audiences. And other than that, you have access controls, roles, which would be, part of it, and that helps in allocating the right role to a particular resource. So that way the data is not exposed to the wider, it's only needed to those who is applied on.
So you got to mask it, but then I assume there's the flip side of that too. So once you've done it, you often have to unmask it too on the back end to turn it into something else.
No, this is one side. When it's masked, it could not be reversed.
Okay.
So that's only for testing, but not on the higher environments, but on the lower environments.
Okay.
So when you mask, you cannot reverse it back because of protection algorithms applied to that. So that's make it more authenticity of the data, yeah.
Okay. So again, and you come out of Fidelity, so obviously regulatory. We've talked to, there are plenty of banks that are here today and other regulatory environments as well. So when you think about, the balance of the agility and needing access to data faster, because as we said, things are changing so fast in our landscape and our environment these days. How do you make sure that matching that agility though with the regulatory rigor that an industry like yours needs?
Yeah. So in order to have the regulatory standards met, the process should not be slowed down. So the things should move on, and it should be keeping the way it goes. So for that, we have a few things which are to be, organized well. The data when it's being generated, so that needs to be classified. Classified what data it's belong to. Is it a PII data? It's a HIPAA policy, PCI data. So the classification is very, requirement which keeps the regulatory standards, as well as cataloging the data within data management tools. So you create business dictionaries, jargons to reference the data for wide range of users for multiple business, I would say. So that's make different business units come and view the data, and it's make it an agile view for the entire enterprise. So that's critical as well. And applying the controls, which is again the access part, is also embedded within the architecture side to make sure the data is rightly approved and accessed. Yeah.
Okay. So we also talked earlier. The speed is a lot of times being driven by the want and need and use of AI. So what are you seeing as some of kind of the biggest mistakes teams are making when they approach it as, well, let's just add AI to the mix?
Yeah. So AI is just, I think, you need to have right data before you implement AI. If you do not have your data in completeness, or like it's scattered with no references, or you have multiple versions of data, AI wouldn't make any sense because it will create a different, when a model is integrated with AI, and if you have a marketing data which is not synchronized with your CRM data, so it will create versions of data with two different customer IDs, two different customer names, and it would create chaos. So that's where, like, you have to first your data in sync, deduplicate your data, have your processes right, and then integrate AI.
Yeah, I think I mean that's where maybe some of the earliest adopters of AI and chatbots saw some of those troubles. I think a couple of years ago the issue with Air Canada and the
Yeah.
chatbot making something up because it just didn't exist in the data or it wasn't clear, et cetera.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So similarly, if you have like in CRM, you have like a system ID, and in chatbot you might have something different. So it's referencing two different names, and you cannot push back your data to one database. So that's also create problem.
Okay. So when you look though at AI and AI tied to data and kind of in this area of your expertise, what are some great examples of some of what's changing for the better and faster that this team needs to be aware of?
So some of the important use cases, if I could remember and suggest as related to the contact center, is like it's uh, the summarization of the customer interaction between the agent and the customer, which try to like take notes and provide feedbacks and create models, which would determine like what kind of improvements are needed, product suggestions are required. That is definitely one use case I would think of, and other is related to the retention of customers, and based on the sentiment analysis on the conversation, you can like determine the AI what products or what services are required.
Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about some of those use cases, and I think the driving factor behind that is now much more the conversation is about the value added than just reducing costs. I think that was the early conversation around AI is
Yeah.
let's just cut costs and we're not
Yeah.
going to have a call center. And we've been talking a ton today about no, we're going to expand the value of the call center through this technology as well. So you've got these databases, these virtual databases, you've got this AI plugged into, so it's a complex environment, but so is the environment that is touching the customer, that the customer is interacting with. I mean, we have more channels and touch points now than ever before, and it seems to be increasing even in that context. So when you think about across all these customer touch points, how do you maintain kind of that privacy and compliance so the AI that you're embedding, it doesn't create even new risks?
So this is again probably to have the governance intact. So in order to have the privacy of a particular, organization or like data not to be exposed and the risk to be maintained. So the classification of the data is key to the, applying protocols on top of it, as well as you have the logic wherein you integrate the tools within, and you scan your data routinely, which take care of all your PII data, and it creates your classification automatically based on your regulatory standards. So that would meet the compliance. So it will identify, you determine your regulatory bodies, you define your regulatory bodies, and it will scan and it would map it to your regulatory bodies requirement, yeah.
Okay. So we've got the customers that are touching, the touch points are all over the place, but so are the cross-functional use cases. And in many cases, the collaboration, cross-collaboration of an organization, in many cases, is driven by the access to the data that we're talking about. How are you seeing it really help, to to create the kind of operating models and cadence, with ISO, security, engineering, delivery teams. I mean, all these groups that want to have access to it and maybe use it for different purposes. And how do you make sure that that is going to be balanced and useful to everyone for their specific and unique use cases in the business?
So in order to have like the entire wider audience have access to the data, so in that scenario, the accesses or like there is a collaboration where we have to identify the data owners, the stewards, and based on that, the account holders would be responsible to, data will be intake within the, tool, and on the basis of that, the access will be allocated. So that's how, for example, the ISO requirements. ISO oversees the complete, requirement of an enterprise, how the data needs to be certified, what are the, strict policies, how long the data needs to be held on, and based on that, all the, other organizations would be following to that standards to hold the data, and based on that, the accesses, the data would be made available.
So you have lived in two worlds. You start, contact center, actually on the phone, starting it from that perspective, moving into data and technology. What is when you think about how this audience of customer experience, customer service, contact center leaders, what do you encourage them to think about how to measure success when you're using the data? So how do they go back and measure their own, let's say, maturity of the use of data in their organization for purposes of better customer experience?
So in order to have data to be used at the strategy side, so they have to get insight from the data. So they need to know what they're trying to achieve out of the data. So when they ask what I want from this data, what reports I want to build out of it, I would gonna make a regulatory report, if I'm gonna make a customer retention report. So getting more insights, capturing more metrics would make them take informed decisions, as well as get to the beneath level of data. What is the customer how the customer behaves, what are the regulatory or regular needs of the customers. Product needs to be served better way. So that's how data would be giving insight.
Okay. So does anybody who here in the audience is kind of more on the database side, technology side? Anybody? Couple? All right. How many are more traditional operations in the contact center? I assume the rest. So I know in my experience, having primarily been on the user side, but having several roles on the data and technology side as well, sometimes we don't talk the same language, right? And you just kind of alluded to it a little bit about how to operationalize the data, and I think a lot of that comes back to the truth of the operations having that chance to take the lead on this is what we're trying to accomplish very clearly. Not solving how to do it. Obviously, that's a role that you would take.
Okay.
But from that perspective, so when you think about advice for more of the operational folks here, the contact center folks here, about how to bridge the gap with their own partners in tech and in the technology and data side, how do you recommend that they approach their needs when coming to you, for instance, as a technologist?
All right. So when the customer, I would say the front end team, right, coming to a back end team. So they have very clear focus what they want. Basically they are trying to give. We want to see this on our report, or so we'll get the information from those what are the reports, what do you want to see, right? So they will come with that details mostly, and they want it to be as a presentable format. It could be a dashboard or it could be on a report. So at that point of time, they should have a clear intention, what exactly they want to show it on their executive level or like on a reporting meeting level side?
Yeah, I think it's key to make sure that you're able to articulate what you're trying to accomplish, why you need it, who's going to use it, to a certain extent, how is it going to be used? Because then when you receive those requirements, let's say for a build, you now know beyond just, go build me this. Because I think that's one of the drawbacks I know from an operations standpoint. A lot of times, it's basically describing to a technologist, here's what I want you to build exactly. But the reality is no, here's what's the purpose, the value, the et cetera, so that you can be the expert that you are in your role and do that build in the right way for the data from that perspective as well. So we have time for some questions. Anybody got some questions for Asif? All right. Asif told me that this was his first time speaking on stage. He did a great job, didn't he? There you go.
Thank you.
All right, Asif, thank you very much.